Tom?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our latest live BSIA broadcast, Cyber Attack, Reducing the Risk on Installations. So thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Tom Ford, the Membership Development Manager at the BSIA, and for the next 30 minutes, we're going to be focusing on cybersecurity and the installer's role in ensuring the electronic solution provided to end users consider and address any cyber risk present and don't leave any customer more cyber exposed than prior to the installation. I'd like to thank our panel of experts from across the fire and security industry who've given up their time to impart their knowledge, and thanks also to the NSI for their support of today's broadcast. Today's broadcast has a heavy focus on cyber and the BSIA CySPAG Group's newly launched Code of Practice. So BSIA Form 342, Installation of Safety and Security Systems, Cybersecurity Code of Practice, should be of interest to every organisation who installs electronic safety or security systems in the UK. It describes a process that addresses the key areas of cybersecurity risk when designing, installing and providing the ongoing maintenance of electronic safety and security systems that have a cyber exposure, i.e. those systems that use networks and the internet to function or partially function. This could be described as cybersecurity assurance for installing organisations, as it focuses heavily on defining responsibilities prior to the installation, provides an audit trail that justifies design decisions, and provides the end user with peace of mind that their networks and infrastructure will not only be any less secure than they were prior to the installation and will often be left more secure. This code of practice breaks new ground in dealing with cyber risk and provides a pathway for the use of new technology in our industry, allowing the industry to evolve, innovate and compete with those new technology organisations who are flooding the market with smart devices that are not professionally installed. So after hearing from our panellists, we'll be opening the floor to questions, which you can start to send in now for me to line up after a discussion. Shouldn't take any more than 25 minutes or so. You can also open discussion as well during the debate in the chat option to the right, and we'll be releasing a recording of this and a write-up of the broadcast after the event. So you should have been able to download a copy of the Code of Practice prior to the event, but don't worry if you've not. It's on the homepage of the BSIA website, and we'll be sending it around after the broadcast again, so plenty of time to see it. So before we start, I'd like each guest to introduce themselves and give a brief overview of their specialism and what they'd like to talk about specifically today. So Glenn, if I could please start with you.
Hi there, yes, I'm Glenn Foote. I'm from Eton. I'm a product manager where I focus on connected solutions, and I am the chairman of the CySPAG Group.
Lovely, okay, thank you. Saab.
My name's Saab Sembi. I am the co-vice chair of the Smart Building Group for the IoT Security Foundation.
Lovely, okay, thank you. Matthew? Matthew, I think you've just got yourself on mute there.
Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Matthew Holliday, the technical manager for the NSI. I've been in the security industry for about 36 years. Over the last 14 years, I've held senior technical positions. The NSI is very keen to assist the industry in introducing cybersecurity to the improved installer and integrator sector.
Great, thanks. Okay, lovely. So last but very much not least then, Will.
Good afternoon, my name is Will Lloyd. I am Technical Manager for the Fire Industry Association. I look after all the electronic fire and security elements for the FIA.
Okay, great. Thank you very much then. Appreciate all the introductions. So I'd like to start with a little background info from Glenn then on the CySPAG Group itself and why the group was set up in the first place.
No problem. So the key thing is that more and more systems are getting connected, and the threat from cyber security attacks is increasing. It doesn't matter if it's a small domestic property or a large commercial, any system can be a target for a cyber attack. The CySPAG Group was set up to bring guidance and structure to the industry in how best to approach cybersecurity. The BSI and I believe that we can no longer ignore cyber risk in the industry, and it's time to take action to address this.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much, Glenn. Appreciate it. So, Saab, let's talk about some technology then. So, how can the use of professionally installed cyber-enabled technology play a role in enhancing customer experience without degrading security?
Well, firstly, I think if you look at two examples out there I've seen with people that I know, I can tell you people that I know who've installed, for example, CCTV systems, things that they don't get right, which this code of practice will help with in terms of having people who are professionally, gone through the training and sticking to this code of practice. Simple thing is default passwords. I know people who've installed devices in their own homes, never change the default passwords, even when I've seen that they should do it and I tell them that they should, they still don't do it, because for some people it's easier to install it and forget about it. And that's one example. Another one is when there's updates and there's security updates, again, either they don't know about it or they don't do it, because if they don't change passwords, how are they going to update the whole system? So they're two very basic things which if you get the whole thing installed professionally, you're going to get someone who knows what they're doing, and they're going to keep it secure so that the device can't be hacked into later on.
Yeah, it's really useful. Thank you very much. So, Matthew, then, from an inspectorate perspective, how do you think the UK sees professionally installed cyber technology, and what benefits are out there for installers to share with their customers?
Well, commercial and domestic consumers or specifiers will perceive that cybersecurity for a connected device or system will be part and parcel of any professional installation, or should be part and parcel of any professional installation. Well-informed professional installers will be able to demonstrate that cybersecurity is an integral part of their system design, which will ensure protection against cyber attack as is important as against physical attack. And they will have the right tools to keep them protected against cyber risks.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. So over to you then, Will. So I'm quite glad you're here, actually, because you're seeing this from the side of the fire industry. So it's a slightly different take on things. So is there anything you can add in terms of using cyber-enabled fire technology?
Yeah, the fire industry is behind the curve with connected technology. It's a lot more common within the security industry, but it's starting to get implemented into the fire industry, which is why we really welcome this document, and it's really useful for our installers of fire devices who aren't thinking of security because we're thinking of life protection, we're thinking of fire protection, and security is not in our forefront, unlike intruder alarm installers, CCTV access control installers, who have security always on their mind. Some fire systems can actually operate and open secure doors in the event of fire. So with interconnected technology and IP technology connected to the internet, there is a possible hack to actually breach security via the fire. And we don't want fire to be the weak link in the security of a building. And also we don't want fire to be a weakness for hackers to implement and actually damage the fire safety system itself. So we're really pleased that this document's been produced.
That's a good answer. Thanks very much. So some interesting views there. Hopefully, some of the installer audience today can use this information and pass it out to customers and clients. So we've got quite a few questions to get through. So I'm going to ask this next set of questions to all of our panelists then. So my questions are, why was this code of practice written? What was the need for it? And then what role will it play in your industry sector? So I want to ask back to Glenn first.
Yeah, no problem. So if we go back to when we first started our work back in 2017, we recognised that there was a distinct gap in how cybersecurity was handled in industry, particularly that any existing approaches were focused purely on the product. We recognise that all parties in the supply chain can influence the cybersecurity of a system, and decided that a different approach was needed, when not only the product was covered, but also the supply chain, meaning we were looking at manufacturers, installers, and even end users. So you might ask, why installers and end users? So a simple example is that even if a product is designed to be secure, if it isn't installed correctly, operates correctly, or maintained, then the cyber risks will increase. The next major step for us was to identify who should be responsible for what and what was reasonable expectation for each party in the supply chain. And it's this thinking that drives this code of practice and also the next code of practice to be written, which will be for manufacturers to complete this supply chain approach. And as the chairman of the group, it's been my pleasure to work with a broad selection of experts across our industry, from manufacturers, installers, and cyber experts.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much then. Okay, Matthew, then same questions to you. So why was this code of practice written then? So what was the need for it, and then the role that it will play in your industry sector, please?
Well, thank you, Tom. So there are a number of cybersecurity codes out there already, which deal mostly with organizational level security. And after much searching with little success, it became evident that a code was needed to cover installations for the approved security and fire sector. My involvement in the development of the code has been to draw on experiences gained from my background with an integrator, holding product management and technical lead roles, and also from an inspectorate point of view over the last 19 months. The NSI will be offering optional certification to this code for companies who want to show that they are serious about cybersecurity.
Great. Thank you very much then. So Will, same question, please.
Well, I was a bit of a late addition to the group because the group correctly realised quite quickly that what they were doing applied not only to security products, but to fire products. So the fire industry is only just starting this route of going down the road of interconnected technologies and systems connected to the internet. So my role was effectively make sure it still works for fire. And I think we should rightly take the lead from the security side of fire and security. Sometimes they are together, sometimes they're apart, but a lot of the time we are in step. And where security leads, because let's be honest, security is the expertise of the security industry. It can be applied to fire, and it should be applied to the fire. And it now gives installers the ability to think about this and ask questions not only of their customers, but of their product suppliers and of themselves to find out if they are doing things correctly.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Thank you. And then lastly, Saab, those same questions to you, please.
Yeah, like Will, I joined the party once it had started, so to say, but I understood the needs of installers in this piece of work. About 15 years ago, I researched into the vulnerabilities of network CCTV systems. And I went around asking installers, manufacturers, what role they felt they were playing in the security. And when no one's playing a role, everyone's pointing fingers. And in the last few years, you've begun to see a whole range of different stakeholders begin to do things. As Matthew said earlier on, you know, there are a variety of standards and codes of practices out there, and there's beginning to be more. And now we're getting to a point, and this is just one part in a bigger puzzle, where more and more key stakeholders are beginning to recognize their role within what should be done. And I think this is key, so that, you know, when you've got installers, you've got the building owners, you've got facilities, you've got a whole range of people. No longer, hopefully in the next few years, is anyone going to be able to point fingers and say you're responsible, because they're all responsible. And not only they're all responsible, but they know their part that they're responsible for. And this is very key in that, especially in the work that I do in the Smart Buildings Group of the IT Security Foundation. We do work on a whole range of things. Other documents that we've got that align to these are for owners, for manufacturers, and for facilities. So it is very important, and I think this is one of the most important documents we've seen in cybersecurity, stroke physical security, for quite some time. So we're very excited to see this document in the format that it's in and be involved in it.
Great. Lovely. Thank you very much then. Appreciate all the insight there, guys. So another one for all of you. So what work should industry associations such as the BSIA and the FIA be doing in order to make sure this code of practice remains current and then at the forefront of best practice? So I'll start with Will, please.
Well, I think like all trade associations, the FIA is in constant contact with its membership. And I always advise any members of any trade association, whether it's fire or security, to get in contact with your association, pay attention to what they're doing and help them. I always say the more you put into a trade association, the more you get out. Trade associations are the help organization. They're here to help. We publicize many things. To keep this up to date, we need to keep a watchword on the updates in technology and the updates in products. Because just because someone comes up with a new product, was that product now introduce a vulnerability? Are they aware they're introducing a vulnerability? Are they designing their products with cybersecurity in mind? This is what we as trade associations need to help our members think of.
Yeah, you echo a lot of my thoughts there, so appreciate that. Thank you. So, Saar, back to you for that, please.
Yeah, I really applaud the BSIA in helping pull this together and bringing people together to put this code of practice in place. I think that the key thing from our point of view is that the IoT Security Foundation is going to work jointly with the BSIA, trying to make sure this guidance gets out there to as many people as possible, because this is just one of the key audience that we need to get out to. And the BSIA quite rightly recognise that cyber across all the different user groups is very important, and this is just one of the areas of work I believe that they're doing, and we hope to get involved in more of these to make sure it's not just installers, it's not just manufacturers or whatever, it's all groups, because security is everyone's responsibility. And I think, as I said, I applaud the BSIA in taking this role and moving it forward and bringing the right people in the right way to create this code of practice and to promote it in things like this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, Glenn.
I think for me, it's awareness and understanding why this is important that's key. Cybersecurity is with us as an industry and it isn't going away, and we need to be tackling it head on. The CyberSpag group itself is fully aware that this isn't a one-hit wonder, that we've done this document and then we just move on. We are very aware that this will need to be kept up to date, reviewed, refreshed. We're also introducing training to support this code as well, and also supporting documents. So there's still a lot of work to do to make sure this is a very successful approach.
No, that's exactly it. Yeah, thank you. So Matthew then.
Well, I think it's great that the BSIA have led this and have opened it up to the general industry and not specifically membership, which has helped a great deal and will help a great deal. But it needs regular reviews. This code will be able to stay up to date, provided that it's shared widely through a wide audience, and the ongoing feedback will then help to keep it current. And it's also important to remember that this isn't just for installations on the day it's installed, it's for the lifespan of any installation through maintenance and so on. And because of that, it's important that the standard is kept up to date through revision, and that the training is also alongside, in parallel if you wish, promote.
I think we might have lost Matthew there. Can the other panelists still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just give Matthew a few minutes just to come back to us there. We can send some responses out to that question as we go. So thank you all. So for me, it's important to highlight that the relevance and importance of associations can have in the creation of something like this groundbreaking industry sort of document for standards of guidance and best practice as well. So you are going to get out of it what you put in, and this is just to engage with your chosen association is going to give you a greater value. And this is just one example of some of the great work that we as a trade association for the security industry can do. So my next question then is just for Glenn. So how can our members in the wider fire and security industry promote and take part in the development of this and similar documents in the future?
Well, the BSIA is always looking for members to move away from being observers to fully engaged members. And as an active member, my company benefits from a deeper understanding of the direction of the industry and the option to influence on relevant standards and codes of practice. The more members of the industry get involved, the better and more relevant documents like this code of practice become. So my advice to others who want to get involved and influence the industry standards is to join the BSIA and become an active member of the groups that develop these codes of practice and guidance. Very similar to what Will was saying before about people getting involved.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, my thoughts exactly on that. So, Saab, with IoT ever growing, what message would you want to give to people looking at increasing their smart device solutions, whether at home or in the business? And what do you think installers should really be showing them?
I think it's important to show any customer that the installer has at least undertaken a training course or the equivalent of a training course related to this code of practice. At the moment, there isn't a training course available, but there will be in the next few months. And I think as that expands, that will be very important, because one of my complaints from all those years ago when I looked at the vulnerabilities of network CCTV systems was that it seemed to me that installers had no training, or if they had some training, it was because it was specialist training in very odd companies where they were specifically looking at network security. So networks and networking, not that security. So they might understand a few things about networks at that time. At the moment, what's required is not just understanding that networks exist and you can put a device on the network, it's understanding how to secure that network. And some of those things are definitely the right things that we've got in this code of practice. So at the moment, yes, it's not mandatory, it is optional. And to know that your installer has undergone the training and understands the code of practice, that is going to be vital. And I think that's, as long as people can demonstrate that they've gone through that training, that's a really good starting point.
Great, thank you. So over to Will then. Even though this looks at security, you mentioned about the code of practice used for the fire industry. So what does that mean for installers within the fire industry then?
It's a little bit of a warning and a little bit of take the blinkers off. The fire industry is very traditional and we're very slow to adopt new technology. One of the reasons we're slow to adopt new technology is we are primarily concerned with life. And when we talk about life safety, we are very cautious, sometimes to the extreme, but we want people to be safe and we want to protect life. But we're starting to see the interconnection of fire alarm panels, fire alarm systems to remote centres. We're starting to see remote servicing coming in and starting to see these connections, and more people are talking about IoT. We even have a survey out at the moment about IoT. So, you know, it is something that the fire industry is starting to think about and starting to discover. And this document is perfectly timed in my view, because installers need to sort of start to think from the outset about, hang on, I'm connecting something to something else. Is there a risk? Is there a vulnerability? How can I make sure I'm doing this correctly? And I think the advice in this document suits the fire industry down to the ground.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. I want to ask a question to Matthew. Do we have him back on the panel? I think he dropped off there.
I did drop off, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, good to have you back. So, all right then. So my question is, what should installers be doing with this code of practice, and who should they liaise with in the industry?
Okay, well, with cyber attacks regularly being the subject of headline news and never far from people's thoughts, and coupled with an ever-increasing deployment of connected devices in fire and security systems, particularly security systems, then companies should take this opportunity to review the code and consider their readiness to offer customers cyber secure products, the products being the installations themselves, of course. Where they feel they could be better informed, they should seek advice and training from the BSIA, perhaps the FIA, certainly manufacturers and organisations offering cybersecurity training. And as time goes on, where there are going to be more and more training sessions available specifically to this code, then again, that'll be the place to look to get advice and help with compliance and being better informed on cybersecurity.
Great. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so I'm going to, we've got some stuff going on, it's really informative for our audience, it would seem. So before we start bringing this to a close, I've got a question that, whilst I've got you there, Matthew, I'm going to ask this question to you, and then I might put it to Saab as well. So this is from James, this is from James Willison. Are you planning to train auditors to examine the systems and who are competent to audit?
We're a UCAS accredited organisation, and we have to be able to demonstrate a level of competence through our audit teams and the company on the whole. So yes, certainly there will be whatever training is required to ensure our auditors are up to speed. We have a level of competence within the business, but it's not enough to be able to launch a full scope or scheme for our approved companies. So that will be following on from training to our audit teams. We're looking at a number of different avenues as to where we might get that training from. And we've had some really good advice, and certainly we've got a fairly good idea of direction of travel. Brilliant.
Well, thank you very much. Saab, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think that's great. And I know that the NSI have got the skills to develop what they need. And it's just a case of bringing in the right, expertise to make sure that they can roll it out, because it's not an easy thing to roll out, and they are the right body to deal with it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks very much. So I'd hate to not be inclusive here. So is there anything anybody else would like to add before I move on to this next question? No? Okay then. So this next question applies to everybody. So Saab, seeing as you're there, let's go to you first. So is this code of practice just for larger companies, or how could smaller businesses begin to implement this?
That's a really good question. And I think for me, when I first joined the group, my thinking was such that I would have made this so difficult for anyone to pass. It would only have been large organisations that could cope with it. And thankfully, the experts that are in the call, in this webinar, they helped me see that what I was thinking about, that was such a high level that really we would have made all the small businesses and all the small installers run them out the business, because it was such a high thing to achieve. So thankfully, I would say, it's not just for large organisations. The team worked hard to make sure it isn't just for large, it's for small installers as well. And it's due to the hard work of the other members on the panel. So absolutely, small businesses should be able to cope with it very well. And they made sure of that. I tried to keep raising it up, but in the wrong way. And thankfully, as I'm saying, I think the end result we've got is very achievable for most small businesses. I couldn't think of anyone that without a little bit of training in the right way wouldn't be able to achieve it, really.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay then. So same question then, over to Matthew, please.
Well, cybersecurity is not discriminatory, and it's critical for small organisations as it is for larger organisations. And the code has been written with all sizes of organisation in mind. And in fact, it's not really necessarily the organisation or the size of the organisation that matters here. It's to do with the complexity and size of the installation. Small organisations can install large, complex systems, and that's what the code is dealing with, is the installation itself. But all organisations need to look at how they address cybersecurity on their installations and use perhaps the code as a benchmark to measure themselves against, to identify where to go next.
Okay, thank you very much. Then from the fire side then, Will, please.
Well, from the fire side, it's probably the smaller companies who are operating more in a domestic market that will find the use of this document than the larger companies. Because the smaller companies might be using more of the more modern Internet of Things fire devices, which are now being put into high-end homes and even just normal homes. So I think because it fits any size company, it's very good. And I think it's the smaller companies on the fire side, rather than the larger ones, that are going to benefit most out of it.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Okay, well, we're drawing to a close. I've just got one final question that I want to put to Glenn, please. Oh, actually, I've not asked you that question yet. So I've got 2 questions for you, Glenn. So is this code of practice just for larger companies, or how can smaller businesses begin to implement this, Glenn?
Along with the other panelists, it's not about the size of the organisation, the install organisation. It's the threats to the installation, and the threats are there regardless of the size of the installation. We did recognise this when we were writing the code, as Saab highlighted, and we deliberately structured it so that it should be possible just to integrate these new processes into the existing workflows. Initially, yes, there'll be a bit of a challenge, but then it'll just become normal. It'll just be the normal way of doing an installation.
Great, brilliant. Then, all right then, Glenn, I've just got one last question for you then. So Eaton has been part of the BSIA for many years then. So what would you say the benefits of this association are to installers based on the production of this code of practice and beyond?
So, I would say the best way to maximise BSIA membership is to get involved, help shape the industry for the future, collaborate with those you would normally see as competitors, for the greater good of the industry. And the greater the input we get into documents and schemes like this, the more relevant and effective they are. And as we discussed, this will keep evolving. So get involved, keep the flow coming through, get the involvement there, and we can just make this industry better.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. we're going to bring this to a close now. For me, I just want to say thanks to this panel for actually making what began as quite a complicated project for me seem so straightforward. So thank you for that, and thanks for joining us today, taking time out of your busy diaries. So it's a very important code of practice, so I appreciate your time. Apologies if we didn't get everything answered from that you might have wanted to, but we'll happily answer any more